and we have a lot of collaborators abroad. Thank you very much.
Guido Zebisch from the Arab Term project.
Excellencies, esteemed guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you first of all. Thanks first of all to Dr. Yusuf Torman for his inclusive approach, and I am hoping that I can contribute, however, whatsoever, to a modest extent with the project that I'm representing here. I'm coming from GIZ. GIZ is Germany's federal cooperation agency, and I'm representing a project that's been commissioned by the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. It's called Arab Term, and it's all about words. It's all about words in Arabic. That's terms, terminology, and in particular technical terminology in Arabic. I've been trying to localize the Arabic language in the course of this conference today so far. I could find some resonances where I can see that this topic fits in rather well. This is not always the case in other conferences. For instance, concepts of knowledge transfer or then Arabization probably will not have to be discussed in this context here. Now, coming from development, for developers, there's always these questions like what's at the end, what is the outcome, what is the result, will the objectives be attained or not? And one of the prime motivation, of course, is this tremendous need to create jobs and to get citizens into jobs. This might be a recent output, let's say recent graduates of the educational systems, or then even not so recent ones. Another unchanged baseline is this reference to the Arab Human Development Reports of the UNDP, where it's all about the necessity to really Arabize content so that conceptual meanings can also be shifted when we're talking of knowledge transfer and also technology transfer. Or this is considered not to be enough. There's also a need to make the concepts shift. And like having worked on this project for 3 years now, which is all about a dictionary and how to establish a technical terminology dictionary in 4 languages, which is by far not easy to do. We've come across all kinds of institutions and dared a little analysis in this way. So there's always the private sector with companies, industrial associations, normalization authorities, then there's governmental, non-governmental institutions. Now, you see them listed here. Somehow everybody works on terminology, but it doesn't seem that everybody shares their terminology. For instance, the private sector, sometimes there's worries this might be about industrial espionage. So we cannot get their terminology into our dictionary, you see, as simple as that. Or then industrial associations do not really seem concerned. The normalization authorities are pricey, they need to be paid. Language academies, they have different processes. They are a bit, let's say, on a different timeline than us. They don't have a ministry in their back with results to be proven up to a certain moment. And so on, up to some labor market agencies, just to name one of them. There's an example in Morocco where there is 250 different professional, vocational training courses, modules being offered, so it's a large choice. However, all of them are in French. And now there is a discrepancy in Morocco as well, as French is somehow on the decrease, which can be measured. So this is reasons to believe that something could be done to enhance the terminology sector. And as I mentioned here, terminology efforts are too often unrelated and insular. This would be one observation. Another one would be that budgets inside institutions just do not suffice to cover the terminology market very well and to be up to the needs of science and innovation of technology. The same goes for institutional management. Likewise in Germany, by the way, there seems to be a lack of terminology specialists inside institutions, so it's even hard to get the act together very practically and to get lists of terms available for dictionaries. It takes a long, long time, and even HR-wise, sometimes the institutional frameworks are not very solidified. What's more disturbing is the lack of consensus. As I said, depending on the context, we will get very different echoes. For instance, industrialists and private sector representatives will say, oh, we don't need Arabic terminology. It should all be in English. Now, then there is others. I happened to be at a different conference yesterday in Dubai where there was a representative of the Queen Rania Foundation in Jordan. It's well known that 80% of school-age citizens cannot cope in English. So something needs to be done here, and then of course we also have discrepancies between like what is needed. Scientists have a different approach to terminology work than, for instance, in-house training module designers in a company. That's a different approach. They just might need a very short little selection of terms, while scientists will need to have the entire picture. Now, there's also glimpses of hope, though, and we've heard enough today to believe that we are in the right direction on the data highway with all these different developments that are being shaped or have just begun to be shaped and will bear their fruit in the next coming years. So we believe that it's time to really shift terminology in Arabic onto the online, shift it to online, to go online with it. There's, of course, all kinds of new appliances that will also allow the outreach. As I said, for developers, what counts in the end is not how many books and dictionaries are being printed and made, but who uses them and how many users use them. So there's absolutely no way around spreading terminology other than by the internet, and then take it further. Come to that in a second. So there could be plugins, there could be mobile versions, there could be all kinds of gadgets to really bring forward in a large extent terminology efforts and make available to Arabic users Arabic language technical terminology. Now, this does not mean, and sometimes there's offense taken, to replace English with Arabic or so. Some sectors apparently are directed towards English, but then there's always this doubt as for the absorbability on behalf of the students or the involved learners. Are they all up to the English the way they should need it in order to absorb all that in English? So there's numbers of questions that a linguist would typically ask, and that's what my core background really is. This is what we've come up with. This is a dictionary that we developed together with our partner organization. The GIZ, the German Cooperation Agency, has a partner organization, and that is the Arab Leagues, educational, scientific, and cultural organization, which is having a branch in Morocco called the Maktab Tansiq al-Ta'rib. That's the Arabization Bureau in Rabat. That's our main partner. With them, we organize this technical dictionary. It's particular in the way that it is quadrilingual. That means it's containing 4 languages. That's German, English, French, and Arabic. And at the same time, it's centered towards the Arabic users. That means the definitions are in Arabic only because anybody else can find them anywhere else. And then there is also, as I hear, a rarity, these types of technical sketches and images that come with Arabic legends. They usually don't. Now, I'm inviting you to take a look at this at your time. It's available online. It's free of charge. There's no access code, no nothing. There's a mobile phone version as well. It's not an application. It's just a mobile phone version. And it offers terminology in in 6 technological disciplines, from renewable energies to water technology to electrical engineering, automotive engineering, transport and infrastructure, and the textiles industries. Now, what we really contributed with this to the Alexo and the Arab League's cultural, scientific, and educational organization is that we sustained their own efforts to convert their modes of production, their work procedures from paper-based dictionaries to these online-based dictionaries. We've set ourselves certain objectives, and we would finalize this transfer towards computerization and web-based work forms. Then there is also another need, and I'll come back to that later. We will need to set up in a more sustainable way, as we are here within the Arab Scientists Network, groups of persons who are interested to be part of expert commissions for convening and validating, and in some way also officializing more quickly terminology. I'll come back to that in a minute. We also contributed to Alexo by cutting down the production time from 6 years to 1.5 years for decent dictionaries. And then there's also the number of terms that has been increased. So you can see on the left side, the topics that have been made available online already. They are about 20,000 terms so far. And on the right side, you can see our program for up to 2016, keeping the fingers crossed that we manage all that. Terminology work, particularly with regard to translation, is very, very hideous and very meticulous, as we should know. However, the choice of topics, I've seen them on these screens here before today, so I think we are on the right track here. And what we really need, we've set into place now a structure. There is the German contribution for a certain time, but we don't want the structure to just, break apart again. It should continue, and it should continue on its, let's say, in its growing direction. And we must now set together more stakeholders in order to oblige the scientific community more with regard to these terminology efforts. The dream is, of course, that in the end everybody knows and uses Arab term throughout all the institutions and all the private sector institutions likewise, all the way to the education sector. This will take a long time still. So, as I said, there is chances to go into that direction, structures in place, but, and I cut down here a bit, what I'm inviting for is now to broker information about this dictionary project. That means it can really only prosper, and it can really only grow large if it has a solid backing. 20,000 terms is not irrelevant. 40,000 terms within the next two years will not be irrelevant neither. We've got 100,000 users now, as we can measure them. So we're on a good way. But we would like to ask within the Arab Scientists Network for feedback. We can do this bilaterally later in the course of the conference maybe. when it comes to steering committees with regard to terminology, to identify the right trends. When there is trends, that we work into the direction where the trend goes. That's not very difficult. It just needs a number of persons, preferably in a number of countries, preferably of a number of institutions, and they just say, we do this over the next year, or we do that over the next 2 years. That's very simple. Possibly engage funding at some point, that's another matter altogether. And then also, as I said, a controllers network. This is more of an individual approach where we need, likewise, and this can be done virtually, like electronically across the Arab countries, where we can likewise organize revisers who are focusing on very selected chapters of terminology so that they can get, like the dictionary work can get validated in a more smoothly and in a smoother and in a quicker way than before. I'm here until tomorrow, and I would love to get some of your feedback in the course of the conference. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. So now I have to change my hat from the chair to the presenter. I will make a presentation which is mainly devoted to the activities that we made with the Chamber Aids project, but I will